Federal judge imposes largest fine yet on Capitol riot couple. I wanted to talk briefly about a film I had watched some years ago about National Socialist judges under Hitler's Nazi Germany. And the film was about how these judges, many of whom were not in fact admirers of Adolf Hitler, and they were not members of the Nazi Party in the early 30s, and yet these judges in Germany enthusiastically wrote opinions and verdicts sentencing people deemed as undesirables to forced sterilization and, in some cases, extermination. And this was done long before the death camps during World War II. This was done in 1932, 1933, 1934. Here's an example of one case. Slide taken from Nazi propaganda film strip promoting euthanasia. The caption says, mentally ill Negro, 16 years in an institution, costing 35,000 Reichsmarks. And the notion was, it was good to eliminate these people because they were costing Germany money. Another one, sentencing judicial discretion and political prisoners in pre-war Nazi Germany. Like most dictatorships, Nazi Germany did not draw distinctions between notions of national and regime security. For the judiciary, the practical meaning of this injunction was that its courtrooms should be guided first by the needs of the country, not by legal principle. I wonder what this has to do with this story about federal judges sentencing January 6 insurrectionists. Consistent with such a worldview, a new court named the People's Court, entrusted with the critical task of trying the regime's most serious political opponents. Consequently, People's Court judges were expected to act not just as jurists, but as political fighters in the rebirth of the German nation. Hitler comparisons and Nazi comparisons have been made to death all over social media. The previous president was constantly referred to as the next Hitler, more evil than Hitler's brother, more evil than a dozen Hitlers, more evil than a billion Hitlers. The Hitler comparisons were endless for President Donald Trump. But he didn't actually govern as Hitler, did he? He didn't actually set up a dictatorship, did he? He didn't actually change our country into a hate-filled police state. No, that would be under President Joe Biden. President Joe Biden turned our nation's capital into a fenced police state. Why is this? Because they didn't care if your local Target store was looted, burned, and destroyed by Democrat protesters in 2020. No, that wasn't sedition. That wasn't insurrection. That wasn't a crime against the state, even though every Target customer is being ordered to pay to fix the damages. Every Target customer has to pay the bill, and not one person engaging in this looting and destruction, people of all colors and races, not one person who engaged in this was brought to court, was punished for their crimes. They'll sentence people who showed up to express their patriotic views under the First Amendment on January 6th. They'll throw the book at them. But no one last year who engaged in looting, arson, rioting. No, that's all wonderful when Democrat protesters destroy and loot and burn entire cities. There's no judge assigned to wreck the lives or fine or sentence to prison anyone who rioted in the name of the Democratic Party, anyone who burned, looted, and destroyed in the name of the Democratic Party. That was okay. That's permitted public discourse, because the First Amendment only covers people like this. On Friday, a federal judge imposed the largest fine yet in any Capitol riot case. U.S. District Judge Reggie Walton, from the new People's Court assigned to destroy the political enemies of the regime. Reggie Walton sentenced husband and wife Thomas Vincent and Lori Vincent to 5 years of probation and 120 hours of community service for their participation in the so-called January 6th insurrection. I'm going to say so-called because clearly it was not an insurrection. The Kentucky couple was also ordered to pay $5,000 each. I know that's a lot, but I want the sentence to hurt, Walton said. Why don't we ever get judges like this when Democrats are looting and rioting and burning everything in sight? The Vincents pled guilty to charges of entering and remaining in a restricted building. That's a crime only when non-Democrats do it. Democrats can occupy any building they want. Disorderly and disruptive conduct in a restricted building. Violent entry and disorderly conduct in a Capitol building. That's a separate charge. And parading. Parading. Can you imagine in this day and age where anything is permitted, where you can loot and burn and assault and kill people when you are a Democrat protester? You can do anything you want in the name of the Democratic Party, in the name of being a progressive, a socialist, an anarchist, an anti-fascist. The law only applies to these other people. Parading? Parading. Demonstrating or picketing in a Capitol building. There is no similar restriction against Democrat protesters occupying a Capitol building. Oh no, they have every right to do that. When you do that as a Democrat, you're a hero. You don't have some federal judge throwing the book at you for obstructing federal business in a federal Senate building on the Capitol. No, there's nothing wrong with doing that when you are a Democrat. But when you're not a Democrat, the law does not protect you, because Volksgerichtshof of Judge Reggie Walton, you are a criminal if the state says you are a threat to the state. Lori Vincent was fired from her job as a nurse after posting a video on social media of herself and others inside the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. Now, clearly, if you're planning to overthrow the government of the United States, you're not posting a video of your visit. Just like these people, some free speech is protected and some free speech is not. Shortly after she was fired, she said she wasn't sorry for her actions and that she would do it again tomorrow. Did anyone ask Code Pink or Amy Schumer if they were regretting their actions in disrupting the business in the Senate building? No. They're proud to this day that they disrupted the business in the Senate building. So if you're a hero for disrupting business in the Senate building as a Democrat, why are you expected to feel remorse as a non-Democrat for doing the same thing? The judge noted that the couple cares for several low-income and handicapped residents in their Western Kentucky community. Judge Walton strongly condemned the couple's actions. He can't say what they are, though, stating that they took their money to come all the way up here to Washington, D.C., and then let yourselves get involved in a mob situation that should be an embarrassment to anyone in this country. Can you think of any federal judge who went to a Democrat protester and said, you should be embarrassed for what you did, coming all the way to Washington, D.C., and disrupting the business of the Capitol in the Senate building? No. This never happened. This never happened anywhere in any protest by any Democrat. According to the criminal complaint against the couple, several people sent the FBI Lori Vincent's Facebook post showing her at the riots. Now, this is a common theme here, which is again reminiscence of National Socialist Germany. You are rewarded by serving the state. Obviously, if you post going to the Capitol on January 6th on Facebook, you weren't planning to replace the legally elected Democrat government with yourself. They never explain why so-called insurrectionists immediately posted their activities on Facebook and other social media. Because if you discuss that, then you actually discuss the fact that they were simply expressing their views, just like every Democrat protester is allowed to discuss their views. In their first interview with law enforcement, who knows how long they were grilled like arch-terrorists, right? They said they went to the Capitol as a peaceful bunch of people there to express their views to Congress, and that is in fact what the First Amendment to the Constitution says. Amendment 1, Congress shall make no laws respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. When you show up in person to disrupt the business of the Senate at the Capitol, as Code Pink did, or Amy Schumer did, you are petitioning the government for a redress of grievances. And another group doesn't have the same standard applied to them. Equal justice under law. I mean, is it just a phrase for Democrat protesters? Equal justice under law doesn't apply if you were there on January 6th. He mostly describes their actions as chanting and talking. Well, we can't have that in National Socialist America under Joe Biden, can we? Photographs captured Thomas Vincent holding up a cell phone and recording the events as he was inside the building. Stick a $5,000 fine on that. I can bet you this lady didn't get a $5,000 fine. Newsweek concludes, hundreds of law enforcement officers were injured in the January 6th riot. Now, I don't approve of any of that. I don't approve of ever raising your hand to any police officer for absolutely no reason other than to express yourself. That's not what the First Amendment covers. But if the actions of the violent few compared to the 250,000 peaceful attendees of the January 6th Save America rally, there's no connection. But even these actions of the few, they are equivalent to the actions of Democrat protesters. Democrat protesters get away with far more than what happened in January 6th. Do you see any of these people rioting in Baltimore, Kenosha, Minneapolis, Atlanta, Dallas-Fort Worth? Do you see any of these people receiving sentences like that? No. Why? Because one class of crimes are classified as political crimes against the state, just as the Wehrmacht had to safeguard the external existence of the state. The People's Court had a similar obligation for inner security in collaboration with the Gestapo. And we already see that where we've got informants reporting on these people. Why do we need informants against the American people in 2021? The modern Joe Biden administration is everything they claimed Donald Trump was. They claimed Donald Trump was a dictator, that he would create a police state if he was allowed to remain in office. Well, now we have the police state, and it is run by the kind, compassionate offices of the Democratic Party and willing Democrat judges who are thrilled to be part of the People's Court, maintaining the security of the state. Judges like this, they don't know what the U.S. Constitution is or what the First Amendment is. But I'll tell you this, as long as we don't have equal justice under law, we are no longer a democratic republic. Thank you.